school district has spent the last number of years trying to address two parallel trends. The first is exploding enrollment growth, and the second is facilities that are aging. The average age of our school buildings is 64 years. Over the past year, the Board of Education has looked more seriously at financing some of those projects through a referendum, in part because interest rates are so low, in part because we are refinancing our current debt at a lower rate, which will result in some savings to the taxpayer, and in part because we are retiring a bond from a 1995 referendum. The last referendum that the district proposed was in 2005. Our enrollment has gone up more than 25% since that time, and we think that going out now and trying to address capital needs that we cannot delay any longer is the best approach to putting the district in good stead for many years to come. Well, to begin with, the Board of Education views this as a holistic and comprehensive enhancement to the entire student experience in the school district. This referendum targets and improves the areas of academics, arts, and athletics. And trying to separate the projects into different buckets, the Board of Education felt would result in prioritizing one area over the other and potentially result in the approval of one area without commensurate investment in another. In addition to that, several of these projects were developed deliberately dependent upon one another. So for example, if the auditorium projects were split apart, they wouldn't work. For example, if we had the middle school auditorium, the new one that we hope to build to accomplish a number of goals that we have and address certain needs, if that project were defeated, but the project to convert the current middle school into STEM labs was approved, then we would have no auditorium of any kind at the middle school, and that would not be feasible for us. We have 1,000 students at our middle school. We need to have an auditorium. So therefore, some of the projects, as I say, the auditorium ones in particular, are interdependent and could not be divided. As a result of qualification for state debt assessment or state debt relief, the total cost to taxpayers is more than 10% below what it would be otherwise if we were just going out for a referendum that didn't qualify for state debt relief. The tax impact per $100,000 of assessed value is roughly $30. If you factor in the additional savings that the district is gaining through the refinancing of the current debt, there's another $5 less the 30. So we're talking about $25 per $100,000 of assessed value in both the borough and the township. If we used the figure of $700,000 of assessment, so we said if the home was assessed at $700,000, the average tax impact is approximately $175. The base budget this year is coming in at 1.77%. That's a 40% reduction in the tax impact that was seen last year with a 3.34% increase in the tax levy. So in the borough, that translates into a little over $100 on a house assessed at $700,000, and in the township, it translates into a little below $200 on a house assessed at $700,000.
So
if you add the current base budget proposal and the current referendum proposal together, the amount that the average taxpayer would pay would be commensurate, maybe a little bit more than what the average taxpayer paid in each of the last 2 years as a result of the budget increase alone, without any referendum.
why?
Okay, so there are two athletic facilities being targeted in this referendum. The first is at Cougar Field. Cougar Field, a property, was acquired by the district in the 1970s. Many of the features of the current layout at Cougar Field are original to that time. We have bleachers that are in very rough shape that have been the source of concern for many years that we haven't been able to replace via our annual operating budget. We have a parking situation that was never professionally designed and as a result becomes messy and sometimes even dangerous. And we have other features and systems at that school, from the sound system to the macadam paving around the field, all that need to be replaced. Finally, we also have a cross-country program that is one of our largest athletic programs in the district. Almost every cross-country event takes place on a cinder path of some kind or another, and we don't have a cinder path in the district on which our athletes can run. So we would be creating a perimeter path around the Cougar Field property that could be utilized by our cross-country teams as well as by residents. Away from Cougar Field, behind the high school, we have 2 baseball fields that are used, of course, in the spring, but that are also used by our field hockey program and all physical education classrooms at classes at Chatham High School. That field has been beat up over the years by at least 3 different expansion projects. There have been 3 there since I've been in the district. So the field right now is cratered, which prevents proper drainage. The fields are not in the kind of shape that enables us to play on them as soon as we get past the winter and the spring arrives. So the referendum calls for turfing the majority of that field behind the high school, roughly 2/3 of it. That would enable our baseball program to have a site on which it can practice sooner, and it would give us more flexibility to accommodate other sports either in the spring or fall, as well as to accommodate our physical education classes at the high school.
Versus grass.
The biggest benefit to turf, of course, is that it's immediately playable after inclement weather. So right now, for example, today is March 11th, and there's still snow on the field behind the high school. There's still snow at Cougar Field and Haas Fields. But once the snow melts at Cougar and Haas, our athletes can get on the field the very next day. At the high school, once the snow melts, it's going to take probably at least 2 weeks before our athletes can be on the field. And the reason for that is in the spring, you have to wait for the ground to dry up. Then we have to perform maintenance activities on the field. And so before you know it, it's April, and our baseball players have not had a chance to get on their home field if you have a rough winter like we've had the last 2 years. So the biggest single benefit from artificial turf is increased use and an ability for us to get on the field sooner rather than later. In addition to that, the maintenance costs associated with a turf field are less because we don't have to mow the field and water it on a regular basis like we do now.
Later.
Our elementary school population has remained high, even though demographers have predicted that the population would decline by now. We're not sure if at some point the population will decline, but to date it has not occurred the way our demographer has projected that it would. So we are short on space at all 3 of our elementary schools. Originally, this referendum did include an addition on each building. Our Board of Education has pulled back on that a little bit, and so the current plan is to add 2 additional classrooms onto Washington Avenue School, which is very crowded right now, and then add 4 additional classrooms on Milton Avenue School, because Milton Avenue is set up in such a way that there are 2 stories to the building and an existing staircase that could access the 4 classrooms, 2 on the first floor, 2 on the top floor that this referendum proposes. Therefore, we'd have 6 total classrooms gained in the district at the elementary level. We would probably take 2 self-contained programs at Southern Boulevard School then. These most likely would be small group classrooms for special education learners. We would move those 2 programs to Milton so that Milton had a gain of 2 classrooms total, a net gain of 2. Washington, of course, would have a gain of 2 from the construction, and Southern would have a gain of 2 as a result of having 2 programs moved from its facility to Milton Avenue School. Therefore, we'd have a gain of 2 classrooms in every elementary building. Now that the project for Southern Boulevard School was approved by the Department of Education, if the Board of Education does not move forward with it now in this current referendum, which it has decided it will not do, then we can still go ahead with that project either as a question next year, or if we are able to save enough money in capital reserve, which we hope to do by virtue of having projects addressed through this referendum, then the district could opt to complete the Southern Boulevard construction at a later date if it thought it was necessary to do so. So of all of our school buildings right now, the one with the fewest dedicated STEM space is Chatham Middle School. And as a result of the growth and investment in our programs, K-5, we have more and more students who are exposed to and developing skills in the STEM-related fields. So they're coming up through the pipeline, if you will, of K through 5 and into Lafayette. Each of those buildings, even though they have fewer than half the number of students in most cases than the middle school has, each of those buildings has at least one STEM-related facility in it. Lafayette has a computer lab and then also a design and technology lab. So Lafayette, by comparison, has two STEM-related facilities for its 650 students or so. Chatham Middle School has only one STEM lab in the entire facility. That's one STEM lab for 1,000 students. We'll have more than 1,000 students at the middle school next year. So with this referendum, we will essentially be quadrupling the amount of STEM space for our learners, which will better support the curricular program that we have developed K through 5 and that we have invested in 6 through 8 with the various electives and cycle courses that we now have in the STEM fields. So we have two auditoriums in the district. One of them was built in 1958. The other was built in 1976. Needless to say, they're aged. They are both almost entirely original. The middle school auditorium lacks both air conditioning and a suitable modern floor. The floor right now is made of asbestos tile that we need to remediate regardless of whether or not we move forward with a referendum. In looking at both spaces and determining what would be the best course of action to address and improve upon the performing arts spaces, we did not believe that merely renovating both of those spaces would result in the kind of value for our dollar that we wanted. And specifically, what I'm talking about is the fact that we don't have enough storage in either site. We don't have an ability to build sets and store them someplace that is out of the way and not in the middle of the stage, which is a potential hazard. We don't have a number of auxiliary resources in those spaces, such as modern light and sound booths, dressing rooms that can accommodate kids so they're not using classrooms and running down the hallway to get changed in between acts and sets, which is what we have now. So to build an auditorium that really would deliver and enable us to run our programs the way we think we should be able to run them, we needed to construct a new, or we would like to construct a new facility. On top of that, right now we have a number of venues, a number of events in the district, like Lafayette Music and music performances, for example, where we don't have enough seating. So a new auditorium accomplishes or addresses a lot of the issues and constraints we're currently dealing with. On top of that, the added benefit that is extremely important is that then we can take the current middle school auditorium and repurpose it for design and technology labs, as well as professional space, so that we can save some operating expenses by moving the current administrative offices closer and integrate them into the school district. Well, whenever you have a modern facility that has more flexibility, it gives you the ability then to explore other programming. So right now we intend to run next year for the first time a stagecraft course. We would have to use the current middle school auditorium to house that course at the current time until construction is completed. But we also, this past year, have initiated an elective in theater arts at Lafayette Avenue School for the first time in the history of the district. So we have Lafayette Avenue students taking theater courses, which we hope results in more interest in the theater arts by the time the students get to the middle school. And certainly having a theater that is of higher quality and caliber than the ones we currently have, we hope that that sparks greater interest in the student body as well. So the bottom line figure for converting the middle school auditorium into classrooms and also STEM classrooms and also professional space is about $2.1 million. That includes the savings derived from the state taking on a portion of the project, 40% roughly. So of the $2.1 million then, to build and to accomplish all of that, the Board of Education would be saving approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 a year in operating expenses. Then Once the new auditorium is constructed, the operating expenses associated with heating, cooling, cleaning that facility would run about $40,000. So the net savings would be $50,000 or more by building the new auditorium, renovating the current one, and moving the various office functions in the district to one central location. The reason the Board of Education is seeking to construct a new auditorium is that right now we are woefully inadequate in terms of space and storage in both of our auditoriums. We don't have enough storage space for set construction, for set storage, for seating, for risers associated with music performances. Right now we are effectively using hallways for storage facilities. In addition to that, both of our student bodies at the middle school and the high school have outgrown their current auditoriums. Contrary to what some people believe, in just 3 years from now or so, we will have about 950 or so students at the middle school. So this auditorium would accommodate the entire middle school population. And having a space where we have more choice and control over how we design the size of the stage, the functions within the auditorium, will enable us greater flexibility in the future. We can't realize that with just modifying the current two spaces. In addition to that, as I mentioned, building a new auditorium enables us to capture the space of the current middle school auditorium and repurpose it for functions that we think are critical in the district. Currently, district facilities are rented out on an ongoing basis to outside groups. Typically, those groups are involved in athletics in some way. They are club sports or recreational programs. However, we sometimes rent to other outside organizations who need to or would like to use our cafeteria or a parking lot for one reason or another. We envision that if we have better and more attractive performing arts spaces, that we would have more interest from community groups who right now are traveling, and these are community groups whose clients are residents of Chatham, who are right now traveling to places like Morristown or Watchung to rent out those auditoriums. We think they would probably become interested in having some of their rehearsals or recitals here in Chatham. That would be a benefit and a convenience to residents in Chatham, and it would help us with our operating expenses as we are able to rent out the facilities to those groups. We do not anticipate any large venues that would cause terrible traffic problems or other issues for the local residents near the Chatham Middle School. Any rental to any outside group, whether it's an athletic group, whether it's a music-related group, whether it's some other group, all of that, like the adult school, for example, when it rents out the middle school, that takes place after school hours when students are not present and has not had any impact on the functioning of the district. Since I've been in the district, the Board of Education offices, and when I say Board of Education offices, I'm talking about the superintendent's office, the business administrator, assistant superintendent, and so on, those functions, those offices have never been in district-owned property. So at one time, these offices were located down in Chatham Borough in the municipal building. Currently, we are in the Chatham Township Municipal Building. The Chatham Township Municipal Building, we pay rent to Chatham Township to be here, and then on top of that, we pay a whole host of other operating expenses associated with being out of a district-owned facility. Those other operating expenses would go away, as would our $50,000 in rent that we pay every year. And if we were in a district facility, it would cut down significantly on the time lost in terms of traveling back and forth from this building for various folks who have to come out here for one reason or another. The Special Education Administration has also always been, since I've been in the district for 15 years now, located in a small house on Lafayette Avenue School that is not ADA compliant at all, that also has needs, and to integrate all of those professional spaces into one site that the district owns would also save us operating costs. The plans for the current high school auditorium would entail updating most of the finishes and furniture that is in the current auditorium, such as the seating, the carpeting, the acoustic paneling on the walls. We would also make upgrades to the wiring system so that we don't have wire that's exposed in the places that we do now. In addition to that, we would replace the roofing structure and also the current HVAC system, which doesn't work as well as we would like it to. Although we investigated enlarging the high school facility in some way, it was not cost effective. And the reason it was not cost effective is primarily twofold. The first is that the high school auditorium is landlocked between Lafayette Avenue School and the high school. Because it is landlocked, the roof line is tied into both of those buildings, and it is not possible to bump out or sideways in any material way without either significantly disrupting the other, the nearby vicinity, or having to shut down classrooms that are in use right now at the high school or Lafayette Avenue School. So when I say twofold, what I mean is that on the one hand, it's not cost effective to expand the facility because it involves altering the roof line in a way that is just too difficult according to our architects from a cost perspective. And two, it would require us having to take out of commission classrooms in the high school. And right now, the high school is full. That's the reason we just had an addition put onto the back of the high school. So we can't go without 6 or 10 or 12 classrooms. On top of that, if you look at the entire high school property, it's fully developed. And we can't put an auditorium, for example, in front of the maintenance building when we need access to the maintenance garage, and our entire maintenance infrastructure is housed right next to the auditorium. We also need the circle in front of the auditorium for traffic flow and so forth between Lafayette Avenue School and the high school. And we need the athletic fields behind the school for physical education classrooms, classes, for recess, and for our sports teams that practice behind the high school. The School District of the Chatham seeks to improve the curriculum every single year. And every year we have a curricular review, we have program review that takes place, and our programs of studies at the middle school and high school are reviewed and approved on an annual basis by the Board of Education. Our performing arts curriculum, like the rest of the curriculum in the district, has experienced growth, is well subscribed. If you happen to have had an opportunity to see the high school musical this past weekend, you would have seen many students involved in both the crew and the cast, and they delivered 3 nearly sellout performances at the school in the span of 48 hours. So investments in curricular programming occur on an ongoing basis through the operating budget. Capital improvements we try to make through the operating budget, but in some cases they're too large for us to be able to deal with on an annual basis. And that's the case here. We have multiple needs that need to be addressed. We've talked about a number of these needs for years and years, and we've had members of the public come to board meetings to complain about a number of these needs that we have. And so it's a referendum, it's a question about financing significant projects that we are putting forth before the voters to hopefully enable us to continue to grow our curricular program in a way we think benefits the children in the district, but that gives us the flexibility to do so, which is something that we haven't always had with some of these spaces, including the elementary schools. If the operating budget fails for the first time in the history of the school district, it would be sent to both municipal governing bodies. They would review the budget and they would come to a decision as to a dollar amount that would be cut from the budget. Once they determine the dollar amount, it would come back into our hands, and our Board of Education and Administration would work together to determine what to cut, which programs or class sizes to impact to get to the number identified by the municipal bodies. This referendum fails, none of the projects that I've just described will happen, will be accomplished. The Board of Education would have to reconvene, if you will, and deliberate on how to address some of these needs that are very pressing. And that could involve going back out for another referendum. The downside to doing that, or the concern there, is that interest rates could rise between now and then. And if interest rates rise, then the impact to the taxpayers would be greater. Or the Board of Education could shelve some of the projects, or not do them altogether, or try to develop some kind of a goal to accomplish some of them over time via the operating budget or capital reserve. I believe the Board of Education has put forth a comprehensive and impactful proposal that will benefit the entire student experience in the school district of the Chathams. As you might imagine, as a superintendent and also as a parent myself, I have a lot of interactions with other superintendents. I visit a lot of other school districts for one reason or another. And of course, I have many interactions with the people in the community in which I live, and with my siblings and other friends about their schools. And it's very rarely the case that when I talk to others in other school districts, that I feel as though Chatham is behind. In fact, I usually feel the opposite. The more I talk to people in other communities and other school districts about their experience with their schools, the better I feel about Chatham. Conversely, when I travel to other school districts, like I frequently do, it's very, very rarely the case that I'm in a school setting that is not significantly nicer than the Chatham school settings. That is to say, it's evident that many other communities have made investments more recently in their facilities than Chatham has. I don't think that's the fault of any previous Board of Education. I think we've been grappling with enrollment growth for a very long time in this community that other communities have not had to grapple with. And I think we've made choices about resources and putting them into classrooms and into programs that have yielded excellent results for the school district. But our facilities are wanting compared to the facilities in many other school districts. So I think that this referendum represents a prudent decision to address needs that will benefit students for many, many years to come in the district. And I hope it is supported, and will do everything that I can to have it be supported.